Hi guys, I just wanted to take you through the live streaming setup that I've built. It's a small, compact construction that I've pulled out of a permanent installation at our church for a camp meeting that we've just done over the past 8 days. Now, I'll take you through what I've got in here, and then I'll talk to you about what I'm going to do in the future and some of the problems that I have had with the system. Nothing major though. It's been, for the most part, it's been excellent and there's nothing wrong with it. But there have been some challenges with the system, which are pretty easily fixed, which is brilliant. So the backbone of the system is the Atom Blackmagic Atom Production Studio 4K ME1. 8 inputs, media players. It's a great system. I was lucky enough that I picked this up fairly cheaply, second hand, after somebody had only used it once or twice. I don't think they really knew what they had. Blackmagic have a new version of this out, which a lot of people are using. It's a brilliant system and it works really well for live streaming. And for everything that I do, it's great having a hardware switcher there. The computer that I'm using to control the Atom Studio is a Lenovo Tiny M92. This has really surprised me, to be honest. It was, again, an ex-government system, i5, plenty of grunt for what it needs to do. But the great thing about it is it's small and it fits in a really tight, compact space in a 1AU system, which means that I don't have to carry around a big thumping box or a laptop of any description or anything like that, which I have done in the past, and that takes up more room on the desk. But again, there's been challenges with using just that for encoding and streaming and running the Atom Studio. Now I'm running OBS on the Lenovo as the streaming software. That works really well. I've had really no big problems with it. I do have an audio issue that I always know that I need to sort out at the start. Sometimes the audio won't deliver for whatever reason, and it's just a matter of closing OBS down and opening it back up. It seems to be one of the faults of OBS, which a few people have had, and that's just what it is. So I have this AOC 15.6 inch screen, USB 3 powered, which is brilliant because all I have to do is plug a USB 3 cable into the front of this, into the monitor, and that's it. I don't have to worry about any other powering for that. So that's worked brilliantly. It takes up virtually no desk space at all. It's a good size as well, 15.6 inches. It's not too small, it's not too big, it doesn't take up a lot of room. I run that with Logitech keyboard and mouse. They work really well wirelessly, which means that I can use them wherever I want. I also have a keypad which I use, which I can hold in my hand and switch whatever inputs I need to seamlessly, which works really well, especially if you're standing up and you're not near this. That's a great thing. Running into the Lenovo, I have the Blackmagic Intensity Shuttle that is under there, USB 3 again. The Lenovo has 4 USB 3 ports, which is one of the main reasons that I bought it as well. It means that any file transfers from the Lenovo, if I need to stick anything on USB, any files like that, that makes transferring it really quick, and I don't have to worry about waiting too long, because if you're doing a 2-hour program, for instance, you can have files that are 12 gig, 15 gig, easily if you're at 720. So that works out really well. I have an EasyCap recording box. It has SD and USB in it. I use this as a redundancy for OBS, and that works really well. It means if something happens with OBS and I need to restart it, I still have a backup recording going on the EasyCap at all times. So if something happens, it means I can video edit anything from this box into the footage from this box. They encode it virtually exactly the same encoding, which is 15, and that work, and 720p usually. So that works really well. I'm really happy with that box. I haven't had any issues with it. There are other video HDMI capture recording boxes out there. Ava Media make one which is very popular as well. I got this one because it's cheap, so and it works so far really well. I've had no real issues with it. Next to that is the HD Live video encoder. Now this is a H.264 direct to internet box. It means that, again, if OBS has a problem or I want to stream to somewhere other than YouTube, because I'm streaming to our YouTube channel on the OBS box, I can stream to YouTube and Facebook and 2 other streams. It has 4 simultaneous streams that I can run from this video encoder. It also means that that if the CPU on this gets too hot or whatever, I can just switch over to this and just continue encoding at the same thing. Hardware encoders are brilliant. They use less CPU and they're dedicated. It's a dedicated task. This is I think it's a BM3000 encoder. It is unbranded. It's I think I bought it off eBay for a couple of $100, and while I have had issues with this, I think mainly due to packet loss, for the most part it's been great, because having those 2 simultaneous streams that I'm able to do, it means that I am able to do a full stream to YouTube, but then if I want to just do sections to Facebook, mainly because I find that Facebook has a very transient audience, that can I can switch it on and off as needed be. Next to that, I've got a Netgear 5-port gigabit hub, unmanaged. That just means that I can plug the Lenovo, the encoder, the Blackmagic into this, and the internet as well if that's available, and I have 1 spare if I want to run a laptop or anything else, or if I need to run it to another computer or another hub or whatever else. That's a piece of invaluable kit. In the back I have a 1-in 4-out HDMI splitter. That's invaluable, of course, because I need to run HDMI to my encoder, I need to run HDMI to the recorder, and HDMI to the Blackmagic intensity box. That all runs out of the production studio from the program, so it goes there, and it also goes to the output on the back, which I'll show you shortly. I also have a USB charger in here, a 4-way USB charger, which runs the Netgear. It runs the recording box, and it also runs the HDMI splitter and a HDMI to SDI box that sits under the back, which runs the multi-view monitor that I have. So that's been excellent as well. That's worked really well. That means that I don't have to run. I only need to run this. I don't need a big power board full of power bricks or wall warts to run all these pieces of equipment. It gives me, it's a 6 amp USB charger, so I've got plenty of amperage out. I've had no problems with power at all. Everything's powered really well and not dropping out. So let's have a look at the back now. So in the back I have a 6-way power board, rack mounted power board. This has been great because a lot of the times I'm running the cameras directly over this, which means I can plug the power for the cameras and the HDMI to SDI converters, power boxes straight into here and run them straight into here. I run the 2-camera system generally up the back, so I can run a close view and then a wide view. I also have this rack here, which makes things and set up and tear down really easy. It also makes fault finding really easy as well. If you've got especially if you've got a HDMI that's not showing sometimes, because it's the Blackmagic just sometimes doesn't wants you just to unplug it and plug it back in to recognise it. I've got 3 HDMI ports only because I haven't bought the 4th one yet. 4 SDI. I generally use all the 4 SDIs for the cameras because I use 2 for the computers. I have the multi-view out, that one's at the top because the monitor's generally sitting right here, and the program out HDMI and SDI, depending on what the people are using. A lot of the time the SDI will go down a long run of 50 meters, say, to a projector at the front, and the HDMI can go to a monitor, a big monitor that's just sitting around. I have 2 XLR ins. At the moment they go directly to the Blackmagic in there, but what I picked up halfway through this week was the Behringer Ultralink Pro, which to be honest, I didn't think I would need, because generally I get a fairly clean feed from the mixer, and the levels are generally pretty good. What I found this week though, and previous streaming things, is that sometimes that signal is a bit weak, or what will happen is you'll have a speaker and then you'll have some music and then you'll have a video presentation, and those 3 signals won't match up because the one will be very weak, a speaker or something, and then all of a sudden you're clipping because you've got music playing and blasting out. This week that's exactly what was happening. So the mixer was just too low, which was fine. It just meant that I had to pump everything up in the Blackmagic box to the max. When I got this, it meant that I could just literally just toggle this up and then just push it up a little bit. On the last day, because we had some rain, we actually had to pump the volume of the speaker up, which meant that all of a sudden it started clipping, which meant that I could just literally just turn it down, and that meant that the audio was really clean and brilliant, and that's really worked great. The other thing that has been fantastic with this Behringer Ultralink is the fact that I can plug 2 or 4 ambient mics in if I want to. We had a fairly funny speaker, and there was a lot of laughter from the crowd. For the most part, that laughter didn't translate when I didn't have the ambient mics in. He would tell a joke, it would sound like it was fairly dead. Once I plugged a couple of ambient mics in and fed that signal into the live stream, all of a sudden it made the live stream quite a bit bigger, and that worked out very well in terms of the feel of the whole live stream, and got a few comments back from that. It also has 2 channels where I can plug in an iPod and stream music, or play music for anything that I've before the stream or after the stream, or If you've got something where there's a copyright issue, potentially, that you think there's gonna happen, I can override any music that's going through the live stream and play some just royalty-free music that I have on an iPod, and that's been quite good. And I've only done that once so far, but that video didn't have any copyright issues on it. So whereas the previous ones did, because they were playing copyrighted music on YouTube. So that's worked out really well. So the plan is to also have the two more inputs into this for the ambient mics to be plugged in, and this will go into the rack, which I'll talk about later. And I also have this, which is a network point. At the moment I'm having to feed any internet through the box and plug it into the hub. That way that's not ideal. And again, if I'm trying to fault find or whatever, or unplug stuff, that's not worked very well for me. So I've got this now. That'll be going in very shortly, basically. So some of the things that I have had issues with is, while it's a really compact setup, that's not been ideal. The first couple of nights we did have some issues, because I literally just set it up that week, and hadn't, while I tried it out, I hadn't tried it out fully, and that was my problem. I definitely should have done that. I should have tested a lot more than I did. And what happened was, I put things in where I thought would be accessible. That didn't happen. You can see here that the recording box is sort of out of view, and it's very hard to get to. Also, the HDMI cable that's on it's fairly short, so it only comes to there and sort of hangs out the front. So I found that I had to just sort of get it on the Velcro there and plug in the USB, and that worked fine, but again, it wasn't ideal. It just needs more room to get into. The internet getting into the hub was quite hard. I had a problem where the first USB charger that I bought actually died. That meant that everything that was being powered by that USB charger, and it died right before a program, meant that this was gone, which meant that I couldn't use the switcher to do any switching. That means the HDMI splitter didn't work. It meant that I had to quickly plug the encoder into the computer to use the USBs off that, and the video monitor also didn't work. The multi-view monitor didn't work from the splitter. So that was a failure, but I think that that's sorted out now. This USB charger that I bought now has been really good. The other one was running quite hot, and that didn't work. And that was one of the other problems. Because it's such in a small space, I actually don't have any ventilation in here. You might have been able to see at the back, all the cables are sort of in quite close proximity to each other, and there's a power board in there which has power for the Atom Studio, the Lenovo, the 12 volts for the HD encoder. Now this case is only probably a 3/4. I think it's about 300 deep internally. That I thought would be good. When it sits on a table, it's excellent, because there is a lot of space at the front of a standard table to give you enough where you can put a keyboard out, you can put a screen out, and you've got room to move. I do like this size, but what I will be doing is I'll be buying a 6RU unit. This is a 4RU unit, and it will be a deep case. That means that I'll have plenty of room in there, and everything will be much more accessible. I'll be able to get my hands in, and I'll leave space where I can access things, especially like the recorder, and probably the HDMI splitter will be a bit more accessible as well. Now these are all mounted on a tray at the moment, and that works really well. When I pull that tray out, everything's on it, and that's by design. But at the moment I don't have I need to put a tool in here so that I can undo the screws and be able to pull that out. I also need to get the Behringer in here, and that again, the keyboard's in at the moment, and that's pushing up against the power board that's there, and there's just simply not enough room in this to be able to mount everything that I would like in there. What I did find is that after the second night, that things were getting quite hot, so I quickly ran out and got myself a little 10-inch desktop fan and positioned it here and just blew air through, and that cooled things down quite rapidly, which worked really well. Having some separation amongst things, I think the Blackmagic does run hot, and keeping that cool is, I think, the main imperative for me. The Lenovo doesn't run that hot at all. However, the HDMI encoder does, and also the USB, the Blackmagic Intensity USB shuttle does run quite hot as well. So there was quite a bit of heat running through this system, and getting it fairly cool was fairly imperative, because you can start losing HDMI signals and things can start shutting down if you get too hot. So that's that's definitely some of the problems that I had with this system. But overall, I'm very happy. Everything's worked really well. Apart from some internet issues, which if you live in Australia you would understand how difficult we sometimes have it. I do stream everything through 4G, and that works well. So that's the setup that I use. I hope that's been informative. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment down below, and I'll get back to you. Thanks a lot.